I just took a bite out of this freshly baked puff pastry asparagus and prosciutto tart. We're also gonna call it a pizza, because really what it is a crust with delicious toppings using the season's best asparagus to make something that can be a lunch, a dinner, a side dish, a snack, whatever you want. So let's make it. Is it a pizza? Is it a tart? Guess what? It's kind of both. This is a puff pastry asparagus tart that really eats like a pizza. And why I'm saying that is I don't want you to be intimidated by puff pastry. I did not make this. This comes in plastic wrap from the grocery store in the frozen section. And guess what? It's ready to go. That's the best part. So you can make a rough puff if you want to at home. You can make a puff pastry and keep it in your freezer. And I think that's a wonderful, fun thing to do, but sometimes we don't have time. So this is one of those things, say, you're having a weeknight where you want something to go with a salad, or you want something just to eat on its own. This is gonna work for that. Can be a meal, this can be in a component to a meal. It also is a great thing if you're having people over kind of maybe last minute and kind of forgot, or just didn't have time after work to do anything. This is the thing you're gonna whip out and you're gonna make, and they're gonna say, my goodness, you're good. And you're gonna be like, yeah, I am, but guess what? It took no work. So I'm opening this up. The big thing with puff pastry, it comes frozen from the grocery store. You want to take it home and let it, whenever you're going to use it, take it out of the freezer and let it thaw in your fridge overnight. Don't let it thaw at room temperature, it can get too soft. Let it thaw in the fridge overnight. And what I'm doing now is just opening it up, and see how there's those creases, as in kind of like where it's been sitting, like the creases from the corners and from turning it over in the edges. I'm gonna take a little bit of flour and I'm just going to lightly put it on top just so it's not too tacky, and I'm gonna just roll it slightly. We're rolling it pretty much to press out those creases. See how that does it so quickly? And just make it a nice kind of even shape. It really takes no time. And then we're going to just slightly give it a cut around the edge, and I'm gonna show you why. So you can see I'm doing this on the pan because I have a rimless pan I'm gonna be using. If not, you can do it on the counter and just slide it on when you're done, but a rimless pan really kind of makes it nice for this. So you're probably wondering, well, this looks wonky. Yeah, it does, and don't be scared of that. There's no trick, there's no secret to how on TV things look perfect other than they're trimmed and made to look perfect, and I'm gonna show you that. So you can take a ruler, go very thinly. Now, if you don't wanna do this because you don't wanna have any type of waste, don't do it. But what this is gonna do is gonna even up your side. Look, perfect rectangle. So these are the little things that people do that make things look perfect when, guess what? They're not perfect to begin with. Now those scraps you can of course bake. It's actually a really small amount, so do whatever you're wanting to do with that. But I'm just taking a ruler to make that straight edge, then taking a small pastry wheel. And that's what I'm going to do to make my perfect line. I think sometimes we over worry and think, at home, nothing looks perfect. I don't know how to do that. It's because of things like this. And so don't feel like it has to look like this either. This, I just want to show you that if you want it to look like this is what you do. So now what I'm going to do is around the edge, and I might just use this ruler again. I want to make a very thin cut, not all the way through to the parchment paper, but this cut is going to be a relief to let the pastry know where it can create a little bit of a crust. So we're just kind of dragging a nice sharp knife along, letting it cut not even 1/4 of an inch, like probably 1/8 of an inch down, and creating a little bit of a line. This is gonna then let me know that once it's done, when it's in the oven, it's gonna puff there nicely to create a beautiful kind of crust. So we have our pastry ready. And so now what we're gonna do is start with the first layer of flavor, which is Dijon mustard. Now, if you don't like Dijon, try to, because in this case, I think it makes a huge difference with puff pastry when you can spread it over this. And this can work, you know, we all know puff pastry is kind of that time saver. I think we're scared sometimes thinking, it seems so elevated. It's not. This is literally like buying a pizza crust from the grocery store and using it at home. Same thing. You're getting the more buttery flavor, which I think is important. And you know, the brand of puff can make a huge difference on that. Choose a good brand, because that's gonna have real good butter in it and have that flavor. But I'm just rubbing that Dijon all the way around. Look how perfect that looks. Now my next layer of flavor might be interesting. Do you know Boursin cheese? By the way, this is not an ad. I just like this cheese and I use this a lot, and I wanna show what it is. It's not a goat cheese at all. It has just a very nice light flavor. So if you're scared of things like goat, which are more traditional maybe in tarts like this is the cheese to go with. And what I like is it slightly crumbles, but it has herbs in it. So it has all that flavor already. And what we're gonna do is just crumble it all over. Do you see this? How simple this is? Boursin cheese, I like to use it in so many things, honestly. It's great to put on a cheese plate or a snack plate if you're having people over. obviously, for obvious reasons, because everyone kind of likes it. It's semi-creamy and spreadable, and yet you can see it crumbles really well too. And what this is going to do is act as that creamy base layer. It's going to bake but be protected by some other things in the oven. So just crumble it all around. Let's say semi-evenly, but don't worry about being perfect. And then on top of this, we're going to start layering prosciutto. Again, that salty flavor of it. We're going to just start putting it on top, and it's going to bake underneath the asparagus that's going to roast on top of this. Prosciutto can be just a little bit, just be tender when you're working with it. See how it just kind of wants to stick together, the pieces, so there's usually pieces of paper in between. It's very thin, but it has just a beautiful flavor to it that's really going to work well with the asparagus. With the prosciutto on, I just want to start with my asparagus. Now I'm using my homegrown asparagus. Use whatever you can find, as in, good local varieties are going to be the best. Now what I'm doing is maybe going to trim up the edge a little bit. Now if you buy it in the grocery store, it's going to be dry on the bottom. You're going to have to cut a half to an inch off depending how long it's been sitting there. If it's locally grown, hardly any. So what I'm going to do is just start laying it on top. Now you can see some of the pieces will be perfectly sized. Some might be too long. Let's see if I have too long of one. This one's a little long. Actually, it's almost perfect, never mind. But I'll just trim a little bit off. I'm just doing them to fit. And if they don't quite fit all the way across, that's okay. But really what I'm doing, you can see, is nothing special other than laying it on. Now, if you want to make sure it gets all the way to the top, you can stagger some, but look how beautiful this is going to be. When all that is placed, I'll do a quick drizzle, very quick here, but of olive oil, not a lot. This is just going to be to help that salt and pepper adhere to that asparagus and give it a little bit of seasoning. This is one of those great things. Spring is volatile. We have no idea what's going on. Even though my asparagus is ready, there's days like this where it's dark outside, it's actually kind of rainy, so you can still enjoy the flavors of the season inside with something delicious while it's kind of dark outside. You're going to take a little Parmesan cheese to finish it. I like how it browns on top. I like the flavor it adds. It's really, to me, like a seasoning at the end. So we're gonna put it on top, and it's gonna brown beautifully in the oven. It's going to just work with it. Like, look how this is just coating the top of all that asparagus. This is perfect. So we're gonna pop this in a hot oven. It's gonna bake really quickly, and we're gonna eat. Does that not sound good? I think it does. I just pulled it out of the oven. You can see how beautifully browned it gets on the edges. And the important thing is, at the same time, this prosciutto gets crispy and the asparagus gets tender, which to check tender asparagus, you can always just insert a knife and see how beautifully that inserts and comes out. You know it's done. So we're gonna put it right onto a board just to cut it. I think what's great is to find simple things that work really well that you can kind of just keep and make however much you want. So I'm even gonna slide it off of the paper just to make it easier. And look how flaky that is already. I'm gonna make one cut down the center, which, do you see how the Boursin gets creamy? I think that's the essential part here, is that it gets kind of creamy and delicious. And then you can kind of just cut it however. Now, if you want smaller, more appetizer or light, pieces, you can go smaller. If you want bigger, like meal type pieces, you go bigger. So it's kind of one of those things, make it fit whatever your needs are or your wants. I'm gonna do some big pieces because I think it just, for this, works nice because it's more of like a meal that way. That's beautiful. And then you can just take whatever piece you want. I want to take one of the corners here. Look at that. So you get the beautifully thin, crisp, but it's also very flaky. See the bubble at the bottom? And you get that middle layer of all of the cheese and the prosciutto. If this does not look delicious, I don't know what does. And what's great is I think it's good hot or cold. So if you want to have leftovers and take this for like a lunch, that's perfect. Guys, if you don't know Boursin cheese, this might just blow your mind. It's a beautiful seasoned cheese that has those herbs in it. That prosciutto adds like a nice saltiness. The asparagus is tender and delicious. It's creamy, it's flaky. It's kind of everything you want. It's honestly like a perfect lunch, almost like an open-faced sandwich, think of it as. Or, yeah, like a pizza, because that's what it looks like. So think about how easy this was. Frozen puff pastry, frozen crust, cheese ready to go, prosciutto ready to go. Really, we were assembling, putting this together, throwing it in the oven, and then enjoying it. So this is something you can make really quickly after work. It's something you can make on a weekend. It's something that you can make anytime you just want something delicious, filling, and nutritious too. You get the beautiful asparagus. It's actually pretty simple. Don't think of all the butter and the puff pastry. You didn't make it, so you don't have to think about it. What I want you to do is make this recipe. I want you to share this video around so other people can make it too and see how easy this is, and check my website, wyseguide.com, where you can print off this recipe, go back time and time again. That's the point. The whole point of food is to know it's easy, it's accessible, and it can work for you. That's what this is all about, so enjoy.